Hello, I'm Christine. Today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite book to movie adaptations of all time. When it comes to book to movie adaptations, there's a lot of shitty ones, so we really gotta celebrate the good ones. Shout them from the rooftops, get everyone to watch them, and then read the book because they're so great. For this list today, I set myself some rules. In order to make it on, I have to have read the book and seen the movie. So there are some book to movie adaptations that I love that I'm gonna mention really quick as honorable mentions because I haven't read the book. Now, unlike my top 10 worst movies I've ever seen in the theater list, this list seems a little more predictable. Like, I've never made it out loud and put it on this channel, but I talk about my favorite movies a lot. I talk about my favorite book to movie adaptations. So these might be guessable. Feel free to pause and place some bets if you've been here for a while and you think you know what I'm gonna say. As usual, I'm gonna go from the bottom to the top, starting with number 13 in our honorable mentions. Number 13. The Duff. I didn't read The Duff. I was invited to an early screening. I didn't know what to expect, and I had so much fun with this movie. I laughed out loud. I loved the chemistry between Mae Whitman and Robbie Amell. Comedically, oh, it was so good. If you're looking for a fun rom-com teen movie, this was great. Honorable mention 12, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. Another movie that I got invited to an early screening of. I hadn't read Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. I'd heard great things, and then I saw this film, and it was fantastic. The cinematography alone was so enjoyable. It hit me in the feels in all the right places, and the comedy in it was excellent, and I love the way it was edited as a film. It's really, really great. I think it had a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it was limited release, so not a lot of people saw it, which was such a bummer. Go watch Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. Honestly, I actually had it as number 3 or 4 on my actual list until I made this rule for myself, and I was like, oh, I haven't read Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, so I have to bump it all the way down to 12. And oh my god, Ron Swanson's in it, and I love him in it. Just talking about it, I want to go watch it now. And coming in at number 11, my last honorable mention is one that I wanted to put on my list, but I just couldn't put it any higher than 11 because I've seen so many book to movie adaptations that I love, and that is Love, Simon, which was such an adorable, beautiful film that made my heart swell. I love the book, I love the movie, both excellent. Okay, time to break into the top 10 list. So coming in at 10, Holes by Louis Satcher. Did you read Holes when you were in elementary school? Because it was one of the first standalones that I was obsessed with. I found it in 4th grade in the little classroom library and devoured it and made my friend Jenna read it. I remember watching this movie and feeling like it was perfect. Of course, I knew there was like little things that were different in the book, but I've watched this movie a lot since it came out. I had it on DVD, and I still think it holds up. Dude, I loved that book. It was one of the first books that I read that had flashbacks in it, and I remember thinking that was so cool, because as a 9-year-old, the concept of storytelling in that way is a new thing. I was immediately hooked. I love books that were told in non-linear fashions. I love stories that are told in non-linear fashions. Lost is my favorite TV show of all time, so you could say that this is where that all started. Number 9, New Moon by Stephanie Meyer, directed by Chris Weitz. As most of you know, I was, and still am, a huge fan of Twilight. It did a lot for me. It sounds weird now, maybe if you weren't there then, but Twilight changed a lot of shit. This was the first girl that was a teenager that I read a book about, and I connected to it so much, and it made me realize that there are other books out there like this that I could find and read, and changed everything. So the film Twilight, I couldn't put on this list. It was not my favorite film, but I just recently rewatched New Moon, and I'm watching it and I'm like, damn, this one is fun. Where Twilight was lacking for me was the humor aspect. If President Rob injected more humor into the delivery of the lines that they had, I honestly think I would have 100% been like, what an amazing adaptation, this is great. But they didn't. But New Moon has that. It's there lurking in all the scenes. They're more self-aware of the nature of the story. They make jokes. I did not like the book New Moon. I threw it around, okay? I threw that book when I got to like chapter 3. But the movie is so much fun, and it changed my whole perspective on the book. Don't get me started on the soundtracks, which are amazing for all the Twilight films, but I recently decided that New Moon is my favorite. I put it on when I want to feel mellow or nostalgic or get in the mood to write, or just literally for so many different reasons I'll put on this soundtrack. I personally think it's one of the best book to movie adaptations I've ever watched. I think even humans who are very skeptical and mean to Twilight can watch this movie and have fun with it. I'm so glad I recently rewatched it. Back in the day, I couldn't trust myself to gauge where it fell on like the overall entertainment scale. I could only trust myself for the Twilight lover scale. To watch it again in 2016 and realize like, wow, I'm having trouble making fun of this a lot because I'm having so much fun watching it, just watching it. Coming in at 8, The Martian. The Martian by Andy Weir, adapted into a film by Ridley Scott, starring Matt Damon. Ugh. I love this movie more now than the first time I saw it. I love the book The Martian so much that when I initially watched the movie, I was very upset that they had cut anything out at all. Because I thought this was comedic genius. Overall, the concept was genius. It was such a hook. And then to see the movie and be like, hey, they cut out this part where he almost died, but it was so cool, he was so smart, and they didn't have it in it. That was my brain after The Martian. I rewatched this year though, and had the most amazing time. The second I heard what The Martian was about, I was obsessed with it. I read the book, and then I needed to see the movie. Whenever I was in the mood to watch a movie at home, I was like, I wish I could watch The Martian. And then, when I was in the mood to watch it earlier this year, I was like, I can watch The Martian. It's already out. I think they did an amazing job with casting and the balance between Mark Watney and then what's going on Earth and what's going on in space. Oh, it was just so good. You have to watch it if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. I love it so much. How are you doing so far? Were these predictable? Did you see them coming? I don't think they were. I don't think they were at all. Coming in at number 7, Matilda by Roald Dahl. Now, I don't know if you've read Matilda. I read it in 3rd grade. I have no recollection of it, but I had already seen, I believe, the Matilda movie. I think that's why I wanted to read Matilda. The Matilda movie was my everything. This was before I picked up Harry Potter too. The idea that a little girl could have these magical powers because her parents were so mean to her was just the coolest thing ever. I was obsessed with magic already. Little did I know, very soon I'd be stumbling across the most magical series of all time. I think this must have come out when I was like 5 or 6. The music from this. Remember that music? It made me so happy and so hopeful and just filled my heart with a love for magic. Honestly, if you haven't seen the Matilda movie because you're younger than me and maybe you missed it because it was before your time, watch it. It's such a heartwarming, scary, wonderful, classic movie. Oh my gosh. The Trunchbull. Oh, that cake. The Trunchbull scared the shit out of me. It had a really great balance of sadness and happiness. Coming in at 6, To All the Boys I've Loved Before. Never have I watched a contemporary novel be so accurately translated into film. They nailed it so hard. The tone and the look and the comedy, it was so great. And I just did a video talking all about this, so I'm not gonna go on and on. The books are fabulous. They make me so happy I have book talks for all 3 of them. It would be a huge mistake for Netflix to not do the 2nd and 3rd books. I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen. 5, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. It was really tough deciding what Harry Potter movies to put on this list. There is a lot cut out in this movie that I loved in the book, but it doesn't even matter because the movie is amazing. I adore watching our characters kind of just be in high school. We get to see the most of that in this film. It feels like a rom-com, but with magic, but with Harry Potter. And the scene in the cave at the end with Dumbledore and Harry, it's like they ripped that image right out of your mind and put it there. The Felix Felicis scene, perfection. It was my favorite. It was so good. I loved it. If you don't know, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I have book talks for every book except for book 4. Because somehow I always manage to be busy when I finish a reread of that book. I have not taken notes to make a proper book talk, and I'm sorry. Someday I'll get there. Coming in at 4, Divergent. Now, while the other 2 films are their own weird monsters, I left the Divergent film feeling so empowered, so happy. I saw it with Kat a month early, and I remember looking at her afterward and being like, they did it! They did it! They did it! I was so scared about that film because I love that book so much. It really encouraged me to be brave. And that sounds cliche, but it did. It really strengthened my will to do more things that might scare me. Kat and I flew to Chicago for an early screening of Divergent to interview the cast. It's a whole long story. There's a video about it. It's called Interviewing the Divergent Cast. We took a cab to the movie theater because it was freezing, but we ran home. We had so much energy. We ran to the hotel and then we proceeded to film the first Name That Character. It was such a great day and everything was fabulous. Number 3, Breaking Breaking Dawn Part 2. If you watched the Twilight films and you didn't make it to Breaking Dawn Part 2, it is worth it to push yourself to Breaking Dawn Part 2. Never have I had a more memorable experience in the theater. Every Twilight fan has a story from when they were watching Breaking Dawn Part 2. I obviously am no exception. I don't know if you were around to watch my movie review back in the day, but if you want to watch it, it still exists. I was at that theater with Olivia. It was when they had first started doing the shows before midnight on Thursday, so it was like the 8 o'clock show. I will never forget that moment when we see Carlisle's. The entire theater gasped, and from there on, it was a shit show. Olivia jumped over and grabbed my arm, and I grabbed her arm, and I just was so moved in that moment that she cared as much as I did about what the fuck was going on the screen. It was the best moment in the Twilight franchise. This moment was everything. Then it proceeded to keep being everything for like a whole 10-minute sequence of amazing. And then the end with the credit sequence to Christina Perry's 1,000 Years. I will always remember sitting there crying, singing along as the credits rolled, and they made credit for every person who's ever been in a Twilight film. I'm like tearing up thinking about it. I was in a theater with Twilight fans because it was the first showing of it. We were all singing and crying. It was a beautiful time. All along I believed. Number 2 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. What a perfect film. What a perfect film from beginning to end. I was like, this is perfection. And this rivals Breaking Dawn for my best movie theater going experience ever. This one was my brother and I. We went to the midnight show and people were dressed up. Everyone was so excited, obviously. It was the last Harry Potter film, man. It was just an epic day. We had been marathoning the other 7 movies beforehand too, so we had just watched Part 1 at home. We went dressed in our Harry Potter gear. It's so nice to share my love of Harry Potter with my little brother. That was something growing up that we always watched together and got excited about. Even Olivia loves Harry Potter, but Paul and I used to, make videos and do things Harry Potter. Everyone in that theater got every joke and cried at everything that would make you cry. I'll never forget the scene where McGonagall brings Hogwarts to life and all the adults are outside putting the bubble of protection around the school. It always gives me chills. The score during that scene always gives me chills. Alexander Desplat, I love the score during the scene where the trio make their way down to the boathouse. And I love the way they translated the Horcrux ordeal from book to movie. In the book, Harry can't feel the Horcruxes, but in the movie it works that he can hear it, he could feel it, and it's that visual translation that we needed. They did such a good job. I love all the Harry Potter movies so much. Obviously, Sorcerer's Stone is amazing, but it's not on this list because it's not my top 10. There's too many amazing movies. This was just blew me away. And I loved Deathly Hallows Part 1. I love it! I actually have a movie review for this film, but it's called Long Live Harry Potter, and it's on polandbananasBOOKS. But if you search Christine Riccio, Long Live Harry Potter, it'll pop up. I'm so glad I made that video. It was before I really started doing movie reviews. I'm so glad I have those feelings captured in a time capsule from when I came back from that movie. I recorded it at like 3 in the morning. And finally, we've come to number 1. You probably guessed it just by knowing what has already come and what's missing. The best book-to-movie adaptation that has ever graced my eyes, that I've ever had the honor to enjoy. Catching Fire, directed by Francis Lawrence, starring Jennifer Lawrence and Josh Hutcherson. It was like they took my brain and then downloaded the images I saw and put them up on the screen. It was so perfect. All the Hunger Games films are really great. Catching Fire was exactly what I wanted. I cried multiple times. Everything was perfect. The casting, all the new victors we got to meet, the end, Jennifer Lawrence's performance, their tour, Effie. I will never forget that trailer where we first see Effie in that butterfly costume drawing the names, and there's one in there for Katniss, and she looks at Katniss and she's upset. I cried just from seeing her face there. The thing with the Hunger Games films as well is that they're not afraid to go to these dark places that they go in the book. And a lot of times, like The Fifth Wave, that is a very intense, well-woven story, and that film sucked. Okay, they didn't go there. They simplified it and like children-fied it. It was just, they didn't do that with the Hunger Games. It was complicated and dark and sad, and we went to all those places, and that is why these films are so great. Mockingjay Part 1 and Part 2 are both excellent. I just recently did a rewatch of all the Hunger Games films. It was probably my 6th time watching Catching Fire, and I cried like 6 times throughout the film. I forgot how great it was, how much I cared about these characters in this world. It's very, very, very good. It has been my favorite book to movie adaptation of all time since I saw it, and it's been years now. Nothing has usurped it. That is my list. Those are my top 10 favorite movie adaptations of all time. I'd love to hear what yours are. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun going through this. I had fun. If you placed bets, let me know how many you got right. I feel like it was a kind of unpredictable list. I feel like I was kind of like unexpected. I don't know. My name is Christine. I make videos every Tuesday and other days too. I'm at XTeenMay on Twitter and Instagram. I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye!